let me just say a few words about the center that I'm now the director of. It's at Ole Miss, and it's called the Declaration of Independence Center for the Study of American Freedom. Long title. I just refer to it for short as the Declaration Center because it's easier to remember. Right now, at this time, it is something that just exists at Ole Miss. And at Ole Miss, we're doing a number of different things. First of all, we just started a Freedom Studies minor. So you can actually get a minor in the study of American freedom. And as part of that minor, which draws from history, philosophy, political science, and law, the Declaration itself actually runs a number of special topics freedom classes. So for example, this semester we're teaching our Freedom Studies 101, the ideals of liberty in the American founding, a class on the nature of free markets, and we're also teaching a class on the relationship between liberty and empire, looking at if you expand too far and try to do too much, does that end up affecting the way in which citizens at home have liberty or not? So every semester we're offering new classes. They're designed, all of them, to encourage conversation, dialogue, debate, and we're making a big effort to make sure that students have an opportunity to get a kind of a first-rate education in the tradition and heritage of American liberty. Now, like I said, right now that only exists at Ole Miss. However, I've just been doing this for like a year, so I'm just in the first phases of this, and my ambition is that in future years there will be Declaration Center type things going on at many institutions across the state of Mississippi. So if you don't go to Ole Miss next year, wherever you're at, if you stay here in Mississippi, keep your eyes open for Freedom Studies related things. All right, so does everyone have a handout? Okay, so here's what we're going to do today. And I should say I'm a professor of philosophy. That's kind of my bread and butter. I write on Plato and Aristotle first and foremost, but I'm also interested in the kind of history of political theory. And what I'm going to try to do with you all today is I'm going to try and read the Declaration of Independence, or the opening, the preamble to the Declaration of Independence with you in a way that I want you to try to stop and think about what you're reading. Because I know it's easy to sort of read these very famous words in kind of a way that becomes a slogan, right? And you just kind of say the words and you kind of assume what they mean. But actually I want to walk through kind of step by step, and I want to ask you what's going on, right? How should we think about these things? And more importantly, if someone challenged you on them or wanted to know more about them, what would you say in response? All right, so I'm going to just be testing your intuitions here. So here, first of all, let's just go ahead and read through here at the bottom of the handout. Notice the unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States of America. The unanimous Declaration of the 13 United States. Remind me, what is a declaration? Well, then why wasn't it called a unanimous statement? Okay, but why wasn't it just a statement of breakup? Why wasn't it called an announcement, a statement? What's special? What's special when you make a declaration? Why is there's something different about that going on in that word than just a statement or an announcement? Yeah, what would you say?
Might convey a different meaning, like something more serious or indicating of like
good
importance.
Okay, so there's a level of seriousness. It's important, right? But let's say I'm not even pushing you more. Well, so they could have said a very important statement from the 13 United States of America. Even so, do you have any sense? What's the magical something or other that goes on in a declaration? There's not even necessarily a right answer here. Are there any other, when do you hear politicians or leaders using the word declaration? Are there other things where that word comes up? Like when we're going to declare, war. War is often something that happens. What was the other? Victory, yeah, we declare victory, yeah. And notice, so why in those situations does that word pop up, right? It is because it's important. It is because something's at stake, but it's also a way of saying, look, with these words, we're creating something on the ground. Something in reality is now different than it was before we said these words. So here's another analogy I like to give. Have you all been to a wedding? I mean, not everyone has. Have you ever been? Think about how at the end, right, the minister or the pastor or the priest, what's notice the special language, right? I now pronounce you man and wife. Think how different it would be if the minister said, okay, I believe you're now husband and wife, right? That everyone would be like, what? No, it's like something has now happened, right, where reality itself is different. So that's the first thing I just want you to notice. Like, even calling this a declaration, it's saying that there's something more here at stake than just your normal garden variety kind of announcement. We're trying to bring in a new sort of situation into the world. All right. So now let's go ahead and look at these other, get into some more details of the claims here. All right. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth a separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Okay, and now here we go into a series of interesting claims. We hold these truths to be self-evident. One, that all men are created equal. So there's an equality claim about when you're created, you're equal. Second, there's a claim about rights, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then there's a claim about how you do that, a government claim, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And then 4, notice this claim, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So just, that sounds so bureaucratic, a little boring, but think about what's being said there just real quick. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute a new government. That's like, that's serious stuff. That's serious stuff to like actually abolish government, all right? Okay, so here's the thing. There's an equality claim. We're all created in a way that's equal. There's a claim about rights. There's life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. There's a claim about the nature of government. The reason we have government is to protect those rights. And 4, a claim about revolution. If a government stops doing that, it's okay. It's legitimate. You have the authority to abolish the government. Okay, here's my question to you. Are there 4 things being declared here? Or is there actually just kind of one big idea? And all 4 of these claims kind of fall out of that idea. What do you say? Are there 4 declarations? We hold these truths to be equal. 1, 2, 3, 4. Are there 4 declarations here? Or do you think there's something going on here where, no, if you understand the big idea, all 4 of these kind of, they're corollaries in some way. How many vote for the latter? That there's really a big idea from which these claims follow. Okay? All right? What and why? Where's that intuition come? Why do you think that? What backs up that? Yeah.
Well, if all people are created equal, then they're all going to have those rights. So like that's why that goes together. If we're
What?
all created equal, we all have the unalienable.
Okay, that's excellent. I think that is the idea, but here's the problem. Now, why? Prove that to me. Let's just say I disagree. What about your equality? Why would being equal lead to rights? about life, liberty, happiness. What connect those two for me? Who cares? So you're equal. That's one idea. Good job. But we could all be equal, right? In a people's collective. All right? We're all equal in the people's collective of something or other. But you don't have rights because we're all equal. Why does that go together? How does being equal go hand in hand with there being rights? What's the connection there? Yeah.
I think it's that the government is made to secure those rights, but the government can sometimes make it not equal. So in their case, it was the British treating them different than the other people, when actually they're supposed to be the same.
Okay.
And that's why it comes into abolishing it, because they weren't doing their job.
Okay. Well, there we went ahead and went down the chain. But help me. Why? If the government was just treating people unequally, why weren't they just angry about that? I mean, what is it that, why do we even need then to talk about rights? Why couldn't we just say, look, we're all created equal. If the government treats us unequally, then we get to go ahead and alter the government. Why even declare the rights at all? Yeah.
I feel like if the rights kind of set up for no subjectivity, like if you don't have the rights, then how do you know you're being treated equally? Where if you have like these rights drawn out, you know what to like.
Yeah.
About
That's really good. And notice an important idea built into that very first claim about equality. There's actually there's an interesting thing there. It's not just, hey, we're equal. And then you're like, notice there's this language of we're created equal. And creation brings in the idea with it that it's like a plant growing or a person being born into the world, right? This is an objective process we're talking about here, right? This isn't just like, a story. Here's the story, right? The claim, that equality claim, is that we're born in a way. Like our real stuff, when we come into this world, we're born in a way that's equal. So it's making a claim about objectivity. It's making an objective claim rather than any kind of just subjective claim. It's saying, look, there's something in us so that we're created in the world in a way that's equal to everyone else. Now, let's talk a little more about that, though, and then that can help us maybe understand the objectivity of rights. I mean, are we equal? Are we created equal? What does that mean? What do you think? What are we talking about there? I mean, look, I have brown hair, brown curly hair. This guy's great blonde hair, right? I've got my arms are way too long for any shirt that I buy, so I'm always having to roll up, right? I mean, some people, their arms are just the right size for shirt. Are we created equal? I mean, it seems like we're all created in lots of idiosyncratic particular ways that are like there's so many differences. How is it objectively could we be created equal? What do you think we're getting at there? Yeah.
I think they meant like whether rich or poor, they were all on the same level playing field.
Level playing field. Then what's the field? What game are we playing if the field is level? What do you think? We're all born on the same playing field, yeah. What do you think? Guys, if we're going to defend the Declaration of Independence what are we doing here? I'm not angry at you, I'm just trying to pump your intuition here, but look, how does it work? In what way are we created equal? Yeah.
You're all playing the game of life and you have the opportunity to...
The game of life, good.
Or decrease the
Okay, and we can all increase or decrease. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay, yeah.
I'm a speaker, but we all came from dust, and dust that we shall return.
Okay, yeah, so there's a certain way in which the human condition, we all experience the human condition in the same way. We're all born, we'll all die, right? Yeah? Any other ways in which we're created equal?
Same creator.
Okay, we have same creator, yeah. But that could mean lots of different things. I mean, what if the creator came in and said, okay, I'm going to create you, you're the ruler, and I'm going to create you, so you're the ruled. I'm going to create you so that you get to run this, and you have to follow that person. A creator could do that.
You know, how about equal potential?
For what? Equal potential for what?
Like, it's kind of general, but really anything.
Okay, really anything. Okay, there's something, yeah, we're getting this, there's a game of life,
That was a bone.
and there's lots of, what's that?
That was a bone.
Oh gosh, I'm a philosophy professor. I never throw bones. I put hooks. Yeah, no, it's. And look, I'll confess one thing. Ask 100 different people to defend these claims, and you're going to get 100 different slight answers. I mean, partly what I'm doing here in this room is, I want you to think about on your own terms how you would answer these things. What's your defense? I'm going to show you some ways of defending these things, but ultimately it's up to each of you individually to kind of decide which one seems the most plausible. But you wanted to jump in? Oh no, all right, okay. Well, so here's I'm going to throw out one interpretation of this first claim about equality, and it picks up on all the things you've actually been saying. You all are kind of getting an important idea. Here's the idea. Yes, we're different from one another, right? Hair color, height, or all these different things like that. That's true. There's differences among them. But it's not clear. There's no one is just marked as being part of the ruling class that just clearly should rule these other groups of people, right? In the way sort of we can say, look, a human being, right, clearly just based on a human being is going to rule over like gerbils, right? Or something. Like the differences between a human being and a gerbil are so great, and they're naturally so great, that any permutation or arrangement you imagine is going to have the human being being able to rule, and the gerbils are just going to have to put up with it, right? Now, by contrast, when you look out over human beings, I mean, yeah, you see all these little differences. That is true, right? But no one by their nature, no one just in the way they were born, is out there just as, oh, that person just nature has made them a ruler. And oh, that group over there, by nature, they're to be ruled. Nature doesn't distinguish people in that way, right? So let's go with that for a second. That just nature itself, when you're born, doesn't demarcate any permanent caste, some natural class of rulers that get to do whatever they want to those who are ruled. Okay? Now watch what happens if we go with that as the interpretation. If that's true, if we are equal in a way that no one's just by nature is in a ruling class and everyone else is in the ruled class, if that's true, right, what would be some of the objective, natural things that you just could not do to other human beings? Or what would that, I mean, if we were walking around and we were like, gosh, it really seems like one group is acting like they're natural rulers and other people are being treated as if they're naturally to be ruled. What are some of the things that would happen between those two groups?
Separation.
Okay, there'd be some separation, yeah. Yeah.
A lot of competition.
Yeah, there wouldn't be any competition. Why not?
Because then they're like set groups.
That's right. I'd be walking around going, look, by nature, I'm the head here. I'm the ruler. No one competes with me. Okay, so there wouldn't be competition. What other things would go on? If I walked up to you and said, look, nature has made me your ruler. There'd be some tension, yeah? How would I resolve that tension, do you think, if I was just the natural ruler? Go ahead, say it. This is hard stuff. Yeah, really, what would go on? This has happened many times in history where people think, look, nature has made me the ruler, and now you by nature are going to be ruled. And so what would I do if I felt some tension? There we go, all right? Look, if I'm a natural ruler over you, in the way like a human being is over a cow or a gerbil, if I really believe that, well then I could just take your life. Yeah, I'm naturally better than you in kind. So boom, I can end your life whenever you want, all right? What's another thing I might do if I sense tension? So you were giving me funny looks. I'm like, I'm the natural ruler. Don't give me funny looks. What might I start doing?
Put them in prison?
I might imprison them. Yeah, yeah. I might say, look, on Wednesdays, don't come over here. And you're like, why? I'm like, don't ask questions. I'm the natural ruler. All right? Hey, don't wipe that look off your face. I'm the natural ruler. Hey, do this, do that, do this, the other thing. It's not up to you to make decisions. I'm the natural ruler here, right? Okay? Do you hear kind of actually what we're doing there? I'm setting it up so that you don't have a right to life. You don't have a right to liberty. And there's no competition. And I'm not going to let you pursue your happiness. Do you hear what we're doing there? Look, notice how just in talking about this, all of the claims here, by being endowed with it, because you're created in a certain way, you have inalienable rights to life, to not being interfered with, to having liberty, and to pursue happiness, right? So those are rights here. In other words, the rights being spelled out in number 2. These are kind of natural red lines. These are natural speed bumps, which you have to acknowledge if you really do believe that there's no just by nature ruling class that's just permanently the natural caste system that just forever rules and does whatever it wants to the others. If you reject that, if you reject the idea of a natural caste, that means you also accept that by nature there's a bunch of red lines that we can't cross with one another. You can't just go and kill someone. All right? You can't just go and mess with someone. You can't just go and take someone's stuff, right? All of that follows from the idea that by nature we're created in an equal way, all right? Well, now if you believe that, let's say we accept all that, right? Well, what happens if I do come and steal your stuff?
You get in trouble.
From whom?
The law.
And who's the law?
Government.
The government, right? And what's the government doing then? Why are we going to the government? Protecting your rights, yeah. I mean, after all, in other words, if you lived in a world, I mean, let's say we lived in a world and you're like, oh, I have my natural rights, I have life, I have my right to life, I have liberty, I can pursue happiness. And then someone just steals your stuff and then you're like, hey, stop it. And everyone's like, yeah, tough for you. Right? Well, then you're not living in a world where you really do have rights. So, of course, if you really take rights seriously, you've got to have someone, the citizens, with their government, keep protecting those rights, yeah? And then finally, if you believe all that, if you believe that there's a government whose very purpose is to protect rights that are naturally there because they're the natural roadblocks to setting up a natural ruling class, if you believe all that, what is a government then that's no longer protecting rights?
Not doing its job.
Yeah, and in fact, not only is it not doing its job, it's kind of like, it's like a knife that doesn't cut, or scissors that don't cut, right? Or a hospital that doesn't make people healthy, or like it's actually not even government anymore. I mean, it might, who knows what word we should use, but it's not really government, is it? Because the whole point of government was just to make sure that those natural objective rights, right, are there and protected so that there's not this group of people who's walking around as if they're in a natural leadership class. Yeah? What do you think of all that? So, you know, the argument I've been making, I've been pushing here is, look at that. If you buy the idea that we're genuinely created equal, if you buy that nature just hasn't picked people out as the permanent ruling class, if you buy that, a whole bunch of other things follow from that, right? All of which then are contained in that in those famous truths. All right? Everyone with me so far? Do anyone want to fight me on that? Push back on that?
Almost seems self-evident.
It almost seems self-evident, right? Well, now, and that's actually the next thing that I want to talk with you about. I mean, is it though? So let's now, I mean, what I've done so far is like, if you buy the idea that by nature we're all created equal, if you buy that, you get a whole bunch of stuff that follows from that, okay? But now the next thing I want to talk with you about is, why is it so clear that we're created equal in a way that there's no leadership class by nature? How would you defend that? If you ran into someone who denied it, right? Here's a version of the way this might go. Imagine someone who said, look, nature, I was born into the world with a very high IQ, right? And my whole family was born with very high IQs. We've all gone to elite institutions. And any way I think about it, I'm smarter than you, I can outthink you, I should just be the ruler. And anyone who went to elite institutions with high IQs should just rule everyone who doesn't. By nature. So, and what would you say? What would you argue to that person? How do you defend the idea that we're born equal? When you're confronted with someone like that, how would you do that?
Because you're intellectually smart.
Oh, that's really interesting. All right, just because you're intellectually smart doesn't make you a good leader. What can you defend that? Why do you think that's true? I think there's really something to that. How would you defend that claim?
I mean, from personal experience, there's so many people like in my class that are like smarter than me and like have higher scores than me.
Yeah.
And I consider myself to be a great leader. So like, I mean,
Yeah.
people that have like 30s on their ACT and they can't communicate.
Okay, good. That's a great point. Yeah. So, and just to summarize, yeah, you might have one skill, you might have a very high IQ in this lane, right? But the human condition is so chaotic, so complicated, so complex. Look, you're confronted with 10 million different lanes out there. Just because you're a superstar in one lane doesn't mean you're necessarily good in this other lane over here. And that other lane might be super important for something. Okay, great, good point. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to basically say the same thing you were, that different people have different gifts, and so if you're intellectually smart and you're good at taking tests and all that kind of stuff, it doesn't necessarily mean you're good at, I don't know, like public speaking, working, team working, and all that kind of stuff that many leaders have.
Yeah, good.
A
Okay.
fish could never climb a tree. It's kind of the saying about leaders, you know, not everyone has the same gift, so people say a fish could never climb a tree.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Right. So there's just people have very different gifts, and here's the interesting thing. And the world is so complicated that you need lots of different kinds of people with lots of different kinds of gifts. There's a way in which we're all equal in the sense that we're going to we'll find our lane, but for every lane we're good at, there's like 9,000 other ones that we're not going to be as good at. And that's something that kind of unites all of us. We're all sort of stuck in that condition equally, where however gifted we are in one way, it's not going to translate into being gifted in every way. Okay, that's an interesting kind of argument. Just it's like we're all kind of we all have the same sort of limitations as humans. I put it this way: none of us have godlike powers. None of us are so perfect or angelic that we can master everything. Yeah, you want to jump in?
Like I've gotten to have a conversation with Senator Trent Lott, and he talked about how that people from the South have better people skills and communication skills because they've grown up, you know, being polite to people or making conversation, where he said some legislators from like the Northeast, you know, they don't have those type of skills, and so some of them are maybe less effective than others. And he says it always depended, like he said, each region of the United States each legislator had something to bring to the table.
Right.
And he said, when I think it comes to people's skills, like people from the South have it best.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that can be true. And you could even say something like, maybe different times call for different personalities. In some regions you might need one personality, but maybe at one time, one kind of personality would work there, and at a different time, a different personality is again. And it's just that's how topsy-turvy and multifaceted kind of the human condition is that the different kinds of things are going to be needed to be successful in different situations. Yeah, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, well, just like in the grand scheme of things, it's like compared to what standard?
Good. Yeah, that's right. And what is that standard against which we're all equal?
Compared to what?
Yeah. Well, what I'm asking, in comparison to what do we all look very equal? Yeah.
I would say compared to God, like I'm obviously a Christian, and while that's not
Right.
necessarily a place of politics, it literally says they're endowed by their Creator. So by God, we are all equal.
So that's one way of thinking about it. Is just like what you're saying is, yes, you can say this person's slightly better than this person in this way, and this person's slightly better in this way, and in this way, and the fish and but in comparison to like omnipotent perfection or something, compared to that, everyone is on the same plane. So that's actually one very kind of famous way of arguing, trying to defend our natural equality, is just saying, look, we're all equal in the following sense. No one among us is God, right? No one among us is an angel. We're all profoundly limited, given that against that standard. So that's one way of defending our natural equality. Other ways of defending our natural equality, we've got that kind of on the table. We heard the gentleman in the back offered kind of an interesting idea. Here's another way of defending it. It's just we all have this sense, this moral sense, it's self-evident that we're all created equal, right? That's one way of arguing. Yeah. Do you agree with that? Do you like that argument?
I was kind of going to argue against it.
Good, excellent, good. Because there's been a lot. Yeah, okay, go ahead. You argue against that. Yeah.
While we're all born equal, which I do agree with.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Like I said, while we're all born equal, which I do agree with.
Yep.
Are we all born into equal opportunity?
There we go. Yeah. Okay. Doesn't seem like it. Yeah. And I mean, is it obvious? I mean, do all people share the sense that we're all created equal? Are all human beings walking around with that idea? Yeah, Douglas?
Is it not a very Western idea? If you were in India, most people, even to this day, believe that they're born into a caste.
Right, okay.
In China, they believe.
So in other places in the world, people don't think it's obvious. Yeah? Do you want to okay, now you want to defend yourself?
Sure.
Yeah, good.
So I think the founders believed themselves that this was self-evident. And of course, they had somebody stand up and say, no, it's not. We believe we are over you. We were given, divine appointment as the king, and you're the ruling class that we rule over you.
Yeah, okay.
So they had to defend it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
the way they defended it was through revolution.
There we go. Yeah, that's right. I mean, there is a way in which you can prove that you're equal to someone else, that they're not meant to be a natural ruling class over you, the naturally ruled. There's a way of proving it, namely, what? You fight. Yeah, you fight. And that is something that the people who just thought they were naturally so much better that they don't even have to worry about a challenge end up finding themselves challenged, and it turns out they're more equal than they thought. So that is one way it goes. Yeah, you wanted to jump in?
It's with that same logic, people in the past have thought that they were naturally better, and
Yeah.
they've been killed or hanged or overthrown or put on an island, and
Uh-huh.
they're just like people gang up to prove the point that they can be taken down too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, and this is what we might call, I think on your handout. I forget now. I didn't keep a copy of the handout I gave you, but this is what I would call sort of the. Here I did. So what I would call kind of one way of arguing here is that, look, biologically, if you just go and measure our power, and none of us is so biologically powerful that we could resist being hanged from a group of other people, right? I mean, none of us has so much more biological power that we can avoid just a challenge from large groups of other people, right? I mean, it'd be different if there's one person who's born in the world Achilles, you're just born as a demigod or something, and you could be, but none of us are like that, right? Just biologically, we're actually we have little differences, but we're pretty much the same in a lot of ways. So look, we've actually cataloged a lot of the kind of famous ways of defending our equality. There's the one we're talking about, just the biological human condition. We're pretty much all in the same boat. There's this idea we heard, look, in comparison to a god or angels, all of us seem pretty equal to one another. Another one we've talked about is this moral sense argument that, look, it just all human beings seem to have this sense that we're kind of profoundly equal. That's one way of arguing, although that seems to be a problem. There's another one, which I guess maybe you took it for granted, but I'll just throw it out there, is you might think that, look, if you carefully understand the Bible, or you carefully understand religion, you'd understand that that's the way God created all human beings, right? God, and you might even think there's language in that Declaration preamble that sort of supports that that was the idea of the founder. So there'd be a theological way of arguing for our equality. So any other ways of defending equality? I'm going to give you one last way here, but I would love to see if you're sitting there thinking there's some things he's missed. Anyone want to throw out any other ideas here in the final? Yeah.
Well, like if you're looking at two newborn babies, you can't tell which one is born in ruling class or
Good.
to be ruled class. They're equal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and so that's kind of a version of the biological argument here. Is look, if you just look at the people, no one is so just marked as being a natural ruler, right? Here's one final kind of argument you'll get, I think, is, look, when you treat another human being as if as if that person is naturally inferior to you, right? So you just treat them however you'd like. You can do anything you want. They're always walking around kind of worried about what's going to happen next. If you just go and take their stuff, right? You treat them like they're inferior. Here's what's going to happen, right? No human being can exist in that condition and end up being happy. No human being can exist in that kind of relationship with another human being and flourish, right? Just there's something in us psychologically, there's something in us physically that just resists being dominated like that or dominating like that. So here's another way of arguing. The way in which we're all equal is that acting as if you're in a ruling class by nature or thinking you're naturally to be ruled, it'll actually mess you up. It'll actually make your life worse and the lives of those around you worse. And that's just the way we are. We're created in that way, where no one does well in those kind of conditions. So that's another way of arguing. So anyway, look, I'm not selling any particular argument here today. Like I said, I've tried to kind of lay out some of the typical arguments you hear for the defense of equality. And it's up to all of you individually to kind of come down and like, which argument do you think is the most powerful and best and that you could defend in the face of a challenge? But I do think it's kind of a responsibility of all of us, if you believe that there's something to the Declaration of Independence, you kind of have a responsibility to flesh out your own ideas about what is the best way of defending these ideas. Because once you defend them well, as we've talked about today, a whole bunch of other interesting claims follow from them. All right? Okay, any final thoughts about that before we break up here and you go, you're eating lunch, I would guess, or you're...
Yeah, lunch at 12.
Oh, okay, good. Well, then you'll have any other thing? Yeah.
So if the truths are self-evident and it's kind of along the line of those natural red lines you talked about, why was there a need to declare them in writing and have people sign?
That's why I'm not persuaded. That's why the it's obvious argument, it doesn't persuade me. I agree with that. I think that's a good. I mean, and look, and I should say every single argument here has problems. There's not a single argument we've talked about where just everyone who hears it says, oh, well, then we're done here. Every one of these arguments, there's pros and cons to them. And that's often the way it is with philosophy, right? You're never going to find a slam dunk argument. There's just arguments that are stronger and weaker. And you've got to figure out how to defend whatever argument. So we've got a reason you don't like, you don't like the it's obvious argument. Is there one of the other arguments that you find more appealing, that you would fall back on if you were forced to defend?
Probably the theological argument.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. And what do you think the natural problem or objection to the theological argument would be?
There's no concrete proof of the theological argument.
Okay, yeah, there we go. So the theological argument works really well, right? until you're debating an atheist. And then that person says, look, I'm just not getting in that conversation, right? I mean, we can go debate the existence of God, but you'd have to convince me over there first before then I'm going to come back to the Declaration of Independence and accept that here, right? Okay, good, yeah.
Well, this doesn't say God, it says creator, which can be nature, it can be any God.
Good.
It could be Christian God or-
Okay, good. Well, and so are you saying that as a way of defending one of the arguments or picking your favorite argument there?
I'm saying it for his thing, because he said that it wasn't, that like, that could be like a problem with it, but you could just fall back to it's science, or it can be science.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It can be religion either.
Yeah, okay. Well, and I think, I mean, famously, you know, the founders were all over the place on their own ideas about a lot of these things, and I think the reason you get that language is to cover the different intuitions the founders had, some of which are thinking like kind of as a science route, others are thinking more theologically, and so this way, by writing it this way, you kind of press both arguments are kind of being used. Good. Other points? Anyone really feel strongly that one of these arguments is much better than the others? Yeah, good. Well,
I think the one where you said that when you treat someone poorly, you cannot be happy, I think that's a strong indicator.
yeah, okay. Yeah, that's the argument I called the objective human flourishing, virtue and happiness argument. The idea there is just objectively, there are some things you can do to other people. There's some ways of going through the world just that objectively will make happiness impossible. Right? Yeah.
I'll just mention one thing. You said this word earlier, reminded me, you said, no one's a demigod, but they try to act like they were in history.
Yeah.
And they may be too young, it's not that old a movie, but 300, Sparta 300, that was the main crux of that at the very end of the film. Xerxes thought he was like a demigod. That
Right.
He ruled, and the Spartan king throws the spear and
Right.
it barely grazes him, just enough for one drop of blood to fall out to show
Right.
that they are equal.
Yeah.
They were equal as far as him not being a demigod.
Yeah, that's right. And look, this idea of being created equal is one that is deeply, deeply entwined in the history of Western culture and Western civilization. So it's good to, all the way back in ancient Greece, in ancient Roman thought, you can see that thread. Now, the thread, has lots of different turns and twists, and it's a complicated story. But that is an important theme that we shouldn't forget. Well, good. Well, thank you very much. I want you all just to remember, yeah, good, great questions and points. If you are at Oxford, up in Oxford at the University of Mississippi, even if you're just there to visit, feel free to stop by and meet with me, and I'm happy to answer any questions about philosophy or the Declaration Center at any time, all right? So enjoy your lunch. Thanks for the invite, Douglas.